All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to uh, Tech Thursday XenTegra Canada series, where we talk about technology. We pick up one technology, do more deep dive, and talk about the high level architecture, get into the weeds, and talk about the overall architecture and how it works, followed by some demo. Today, I'm joined with Colleen, who is business account manager for Nerdio, and I have Greg here as well. Greg has done these events in past. He's one of AVD or Azure Virtual Desktop Rockstar. We do a lot of events together. Greg is going to take you down this journey of AVD, its challenges. Yes, there are many good things that AVD can do. There are some limitation on why people are not adopting AVD to a level that Microsoft wants. And those are the things that Nerdio is solving, those challenges and problem that that AVD is lacking at this time, making it more production ready or enterprise ready. Microsoft has given you AVD, Azure Virtual Desktop, as a solution which can work for a smaller, not really smaller customers, but into a smaller need. But when you have to expand it, when you have to take it to an enterprise grade management suite, that management suite is missing. It requires a lot of PowerShell scripting and management that Nerdio comes in and fills those gaps, gives you that robust management console where you can go and do your auto scaling, do image management, do cost control and those things. With that, I will turn it to Colleen to just give higher level on the value add of Nerdio, and then we can jump into more technical deep dive with Greg. Over to you, Colleen.
Hi, yeah. I guess for some reason I thought Greg was going to be doing this, so sorry. Is that okay, Greg?
Go ahead.
No, I'm saying, are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
So my name is Greg Robertson. I'm a sales engineer with Nerdio, and wanted today to give you a little bit of an overview of Nerdio. And before we start a demo, kind of give you an idea of what our value prop is, as well as where we fit within your Azure infrastructure. So with Nerdio comes in and provides three key values to your Azure Virtual Desktop deployment. The first one is ease of management. We make it super simple to deploy, as well as ease of deployment. We typically can get you deployed within 2 hours, have you up and running with 3 hosts, a desktop image, and the basics to get going and move further from that perspective. And the last value that we bring in is really a monetary value. We come into the environment and are able to reduce your costs dramatically, anywhere from 40 to 80% of an unoptimized AVD environment. And we do these things through turning VMs on, turning VMs off, converting OS disks when they're turned off, and repairing some of the systems that are in your environment that are broken with our auto heal capability. So we bring a lot of value from that perspective on cost management. Let me share out my screen real quick, and I'll show you kind of where actually is my screen sharing, by the way?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's gone now.
It was. Let me get it. Let me get it going again. There we go. All right, here we go. So here's a little diagram of where Nerdio is going to sit in your environment. We're deployed directly from the marketplace, so we're super easy to work with, especially from a billing perspective. Our bill comes directly on your Azure invoice as a third-party line item service. But you deploy the service directly from the Azure marketplace. And when you do that, we deploy directly into your Azure tenant. We are not a SaaS service, and we do not have access to any of your personal data. And during that deployment, we deploy a web app, a log analytics workspace, an Azure SQL instance, application insights, a key vault, and an automation account. And these run in your environment, and along with a file share for your FS logics. These particular resources that are deployed in your environment run about $250 a month because they're all Azure PaaS services. From a licensing perspective, Nerdio does report back the metering information, how many active users log in every month. And that's the number you get charged on for licensing. That information comes to us, and we send that back to Microsoft, which adds that licensing cost onto your Azure bill. Let's go jump right into a demo. This is Nerdio Manager for Enterprise, currently running version 4.5. And we'll start up here on the top left with dashboards and work our way down for through a number of these menu items on the left. Under dashboards, we have our first all workspace dashboard, which gives you an idea of how many CPU cores you have, how many concurrent users, how many monthly active users, as well as the ability to download this usage information as well. This is the very same usage information that Nerdio is provided for your licensing. If you're looking to do some cost management or billing back into different departments, we have an option called user cost attribution. This option will give you your total AVD cost and your monthly active user cost. Along with that, when you start using it, you'll have your individual usernames that get reported back to you here and their total cost along with how that cost breaks out. Those areas of cost are going to be VM and disks, storage for your FS logics, your images, your network costs associated with AVD, your log analytics fees, and then anything that doesn't fall with within one of those five. From a reporting perspective, we do have the ability to create a number of different types of reports, a uniform report that will divide the cost equally amongst all users, or a proportional report that will divide the cost up between the users that use it more versus the users that use it less. Next, we'll take a look at workspaces, and this is where we're actually going to get into the process of showing you some of the value we add from a deployment and management and cost optimization perspective. We will get to desktop images. We'll kind of do that in reverse order, but we'll get to those directly after deploying an actual environment for you in this demo. Let's start over here and we'll add a workspace. And in this workspace, we'll give this workspace a name, a friendly name if you'd like, a description, the resource group you'd like it to be in, and then your AVD metadata region that you want to utilize, as well as any tags that you want to apply to this particular workspace. This takes a second or two for it to get created in Azure, and once it's done, it'll pop up on the screen behind us. Now that we have our workspace that we just created, we can select that workspace and we can go into it and start adding host pools to the environment. We simply go over here to the right and select Add Dynamic Host Pools. In here, we'll go ahead and type in a host pool name, and then we start looking at the default configuration for this particular host pool. We'll start off by taking a look at the desktop experience that you have, which is multi-user desktop pooled, multi-user remote application pooled, single user desktop pooled, and single user desktop personal. These two are similar in the aspect that it's only one user per virtual machine. The difference between them is a personal, that user is permanently assigned to that VM for the life of that VM. So A single user desktop pool will bounce around from VM to VM to VM within the host pool itself. They will just happen to be one person per VM. Also keep in mind, anything that is pooled, you will likely or you're somewhat required to utilize FS logics in a pooled environment so that the user's profile can follow them as they log in and out of different systems within that host pool. Next, we look at our Active Directory configuration. Each host pool that you deploy could have theoretically a different OU that it needs to be a part of, maybe a different service account to join the VMs to the domain. And because of that, you can create multiple profiles and then associate that profile with this particular host pool for automation purposes moving forward. Very similar to that, FS Logics also has the ability to have multiple profiles. You'll need a different storage location for each profile on each host pool. So that's one storage location per host pool so that you don't get your profiles locked and unable to mount to another session. So you could create those profiles and define those locations. You can also have Nerdio not install FS Logics. Nerdio will install FS Logics, configure it, as well as install the RDP client, the bootloader, the GPU drivers for any GPU-enabled VM, monitoring agents, as well as any other software that you've added a custom script. We'll run that script and install whatever that software is or run those configuration commands that you're looking to have. Next, we have our naming convention for the hosts that are going to go into this host pool. And in this example, I'll just utilize multi. And we can either stick with a prefix, which will add a dash and 4 alphanumeric characters to the end, or we can utilize a pattern. And a pattern gives you two options, either 4 hashtags or 4 question marks. Question marks will be alphanumeric characters. Hashtags will be numbers 0 through 9 for each hashtag. So in this example, this will give us 000 through 999. Next, we have our network. Very simple selection, but a very important piece to AVD. You may be a global organization having the need to place your AVD resources closer to the end user. And with Nerdio, we allow you to simply link those networks in those other regions. And once that's linked, you just simply select the network that you want those VMs to be deployed to, and that's where they end up. Next, we have our desktop imaging. And from a Nerdio perspective, anything above the Azure Marketplace or images that Nerdio is managing for you. I've selected specifically this demo-based image. It is version 15. That's important because I'll show you backup copies of it down below. Next, we have our Azure Marketplace images, and you can select anything from the Azure Marketplace that's AVD specific for your particular environment if that's what you'd like to do, as well as any custom images or previous versions of other images that you've made backups of. Next, we can select our VM size. We can select any VM that's available to you within your environment, as well as the ability to limit administratively these choices in this drop-down list. Next, we have our OS disk. And from a deployment perspective, you're always really going to want a premium SSD. However, everything in Azure is expected to be 128 gig. Because of that, we got this little warning about my image not being the same as the OS disk, which it is not. I used a script that's provided by Nerdio to reduce this from 128 down to 64 gig in order to reduce my overall cost. Because it's 64, now 64 is available. We also do support ephemeral disk as well. Next, we have our quick assign. So if this is a brand new host pool, we can simply type in a security group or a set of users and assign those users to this host pool during the creation of it, as well as the ability to apply tags to this host pool and VMs that are being deployed. Right now, while we're sitting here waiting for the host pool to be configured, we're doing Azure Graph API calls back to your tenant, setting up the host pool, the application group, and assigning the users and getting things ready. Now that that has completed, we are at the very last screen of our host pool configuration, and this is our auto scale screen. This is where we're going to set up cost reduction and management of the environment. First thing I want you to notice is up here at the top right, we have an on and off button for auto scale. It is always by default turned off, but I'll turn that on and change my base host pool capacity from 5 to 3 and select save, so that during this demo, I'm actually deploying 3 hosts in a host pool right now with this default configuration. One of the things to keep note of is if you notice this cost for storage over here, you will, by the way, land somewhere in the middle between your minimum and maximum. But if we just take a look at this cost on these 3 VMs just for the storage, when we turn the VM off, we have the ability to convert that disk to a standard HDD, significantly reducing your OS disk cost for storage. When we turn the VM back on, we will convert this back. It is instantaneous. Data is not getting moved. It is a quality of service setting on the backside within Azure that we're taking advantage of. Next, we also reuse host names. So if you have resources tied to specific host names, we will continue to reuse the same host names even when we re-image the host in the host pool, which you will typically do at least once a month. Next, if you have the need to or the want to re-image a used host, we have this option as well, where effectively we say when the last person is logged out of the virtual machine, we will delete the virtual machine and then automatically recreate it based off this naming pattern and default configuration. Moving down our auto scale, we have our host pool sizing. And we'll start off with our host pool of having an active host defined as one that has an agent on it. Our base host pool capacity. And in this example, we're going to have 3 hosts in our base host pool. And because we turn things on and off, the minimum active host capacity. So I'm going to say here, I want to have 1 VM running 24 hours a day for after hours or over the weekend for those users that may log in outside of business hours. And then we have burst beyond capacity. In this example, our default is 2. You can make this up to 50% of the host pool size, or even greater than that if you have the time and availability to have those VMs built as needed. But these are VMs that are never part of your base host pool capacity, so they're only built and then they're removed when the resources are either called for or no longer needed. Next, we have our scaling logic, and this is going to determine how we turn VMs on and when to bring them up. We have the ability to do multiple auto scale triggers, specifically CPU, memory, or average active session. Any combination of these 3 you can use in our premium version of the product, or alternatively, in our standard version, you can use them individually, as well as available sessions, including user-driven. User-driven is defined by how long after the last user is logged out before we shut them down. In this example, I'll utilize available sessions. And as an example, I'll say we'll put 5 users per host. Our next option is how many sessions do we want to maintain? In other words, stay ahead of the users logging in, either always or during business work hours. In this example, I'll say 5 as well. And then we have our load balancing, standard AVD load balancing, depth first or breadth first. Now, from a scale up perspective, well, the way this works is we will always try to maintain 5 sessions free for users coming in. So when the first user logs in the morning, they'll land on this first VM, leaving us 4 sessions. We'll spin up the next VM. When the 6th user logs in, we'll spin up the 3rd VM. And when the 11th person logs in, we have no more resources in this host pool. So we start to build out one of the burst beyond VMs for a total of 5 VMs or 25 sessions total. That's how we scale things up. This is under scale restrictions, how we scale things down. From scaling things down, we have the ability to either do it anytime, 24 hours a day, or the ability to find a time that you want autoscale to run. So as an example, maybe you don't want to shut any VMs down during the day because of resource or the usage patterns. You only want to shut them down after 7 p.m. until the next morning. You can also, like I said, put that back to any time. And then we look at our scale in aggressiveness. We have 3 levels of aggressiveness: high, medium, and low. High will look at every VM and shut down any virtual machine that has no connection or only disconnected sessions. It will not shut down anything that has an active session on it whatsoever. Now, on top of that, it will additionally try to consolidate those users. So once it starts shutting down, it will also ask a number of users to log out if the requirement is there, so that they can log back in, and Nerdio can provide a lower number of virtual machines and redistribute those users to the minimum number of systems required for that user base. It's very, very aggressive. Our next option is medium. This will only shut down those VMs that have disconnected or no sessions. And then low is specifically no sessions whatsoever. Typically, you'll see most customers go with anytime and medium. Next, we have a pre-stage capability, which allows you to not only have multiple schedules, but the ability to schedule a time, say Monday through Friday, or even something, say Monday, Tuesday, and say Wednesday. For some reason, you need 5 virtual machines available at 8 a.m. We will start our 3 VMs in this example, and then build out those 2 to be available at 8 a.m. Now, that being said, Nerdio is aggressive and always keeps an eye on the environment. So if users don't log in pretty soon after 8 a.m., we start shutting things down. To alleviate that, we give you the option to disable autoscale from shutting things down for up to 2 hours, allowing your users to log in and level set the environment. Next, we have our standard messaging that you can obviously modify, and how long the users have before they're asked to be logged off. And the last option within autoscale will be our auto heal broken host. This is where we'll typically say, well, if the VM says it's unavailable, stack listener's not ready, FS Logics isn't healthy, domain trust relationship may be lost, maybe an upgrade failed, and it has no sessions whatsoever, no active sessions, or even active sessions, we'll take this and we'll trigger off this. And we will, if we see that for 10 minutes, we will restart the VM. And if it still is occurring 10 minutes later, we'll take the next action all the way down to and including deleting the VM and rebuilding it automatically for you. With these defaults, I'll go ahead and select Save and Close, so we can move on to some other items within Nerdio. Now that we've saved autoscale, and as you can see, we're building out 3 hosts. We have our task list here. We can look at the details of these tasks, and everything that we're doing within the environment, we log for you. Anything we pass to, receive from Azure, you have full access to. You can see where we're creating the VM, the network card, and installing the monitoring extensions, installing FS Logics, all of the different aspects of automation you'll see step by step in the detailed task. From a management perspective, you're going to manage everything at the host pool level from this drop-down menu over here on the far right. This is where you can add users or groups to access that particular host pool. You can manage FSLogic's application masking through installed apps, configure any app attached setups that you have, modify app groups, as well as add additional tags that Nerdio will dynamically deploy to any resource within the host pool. Next, we have auto scale. Configuration is what we just went through. We also provide a number of charts, visual charts, graph charts of the history of auto scale, as well as showing you utilization from a CPU and a memory and a disk IO perspective. So you can evaluate a host pool over time and determine whether or not it's something that you need to evaluate changing the size of the VM. Maybe it's oversubscribed, maybe it's undersubscribed, but you can get some analytics information from these historical graphs. We also support an option called RI Analytics, stands for Reserved Instance Analytics. You can utilize this option to have Nerdio provide recommendations on purchasing reserved instances to save additional money on top of what Nerdio provides. Next, we have our hosts. And in here, we can add new hosts, we can resize, reimage hosts, we can exclude from auto scale, we can message all the users, but really the one that you'll use the majority of the time is reimaging. At some point, you'll need to reimage your host. And in this example, I'll go ahead and select the exact same image that I just deployed with, version 15. Nerdio doesn't necessarily take into account the version because we always deploy the newest version, whether it's 15 or 16 or 17, whatever it is at the time that we deploy, it's the one that we're going to use. You can take that image and say, well, let's re-image this entire host pool, and as well as the ability to schedule this. So let's take this and schedule this as an example, let's say 3 days after Patch Tuesday. So the third day after Patch Tuesday, Nerdio will automatically take the newest version of this image and deploy it out to that host pool. You have a number of options for asking users to log off, and you simply select Save and Close. Once you have that schedule, you can come over to Desktop Images. And from Desktop Images, we can add an image from an existing VM or from the Azure library. When it gets deployed to Nerdio, this is a virtual machine. It's always a virtual machine. It's never sysprepped, so you can always modify it. It's a beautiful thing. When we power offset as image, we take this VM and we clone it. And we take that clone and we sysprep the clone, run scripts against the clone, and then capture the image from the clone. Once that clone has been captured as an image, we go back and we delete that clone, leaving you with a modifiable VM and an image derived directly from it. When you power offset as image, you have a number of options. The ability to run any number of scripts that Nerdio provides, or even scripts that you personally updated or created yourself. As an example, this test script that I created and added to our scripted actions over here. You can schedule this as well, and you can do it in coordination with your host re-imaging schedule. And let's say we'll do this 1 day after Patch Tuesday. So we'll create the new version of this image. It'll be version 16. 2 days later, Nerdio will automatically pick up version 16 and deploy it out to your host pool. We can also add that image to the Azure Compute Gallery if you'd like as well, with the ability to push this out to any region within the environment. If you have a testing environment, you can set this image as inactive. You can increase the number of replicas within the image gallery as well if you want to deploy more than 20 VMs at a time. Save this current image as backup. This is how I had a previous version of this image in the library to be able to select and roll back to if needed. Install any MSI-X app attached certificates, as well as skip any removal of local profiles if that's something you're interested in, as well as the ability to leave this VM running after we create the image. That allows you to have a an agent like PDQ or SCCM installed on this particular host to receive the automatic updates, and then before you generate the image and deploy it. Next, we have MSIX App Attach. We do support the ability to upload an MSIX application. We will automatically expand that into a VHD, or you can upload the VHD as well. We do support image versions. So we structure this on a backend storage of Nerdio's own type of storage library so that you can update these images in a versioning perspective and have them all separated into their own directory structure. As an example, if you wanted to use the SIM format, which produces 8, 9, or 10 files, a number of files that go with it, you can keep all of those files separated from other SIM deployment applications. Simply upload your certificates as well for those app attach, and we can configure that in the host pool for deployment. We do offer several dozen Windows scripts and Azure Runbook scripts. And as well, you can down here on the bottom right, you can simply click Add Scripted Action, paste your PowerShell or your ARM template in, and away you go. Next, we do have monitoring, but it's going to be third-party monitoring. So we do support the integration of Azure AVD Insights for monitoring, as well as Sapago Azure Monitor. And we just recently, in this particular version, we've included Control Up as an additional monitoring agent. And so if you're looking at monitoring and you're looking for different levels, Azure AVD Insights I would consider as good. Sapago would be better. And then Control Up, without question, would be the best that we have to offer. It allows you to go extremely deep into the individual sessions where the other two monitoring agents don't allow for that. Next, we have Azure Files that we do support and Azure NetApp Files. We have the ability to either link an existing file share or add and create the Azure file share. Once we have that, we can manage it and add the appropriate permissions, as well as the ability to auto scale that storage if it's Azure Files Premium for latency purposes, as well as the ability to schedule quota increases on a scheduled basis. We do the exact same thing for Azure NetApp Files as well. We do provide some simple management for your log analytics workspace, the ability to modify your retention periods, as well as the ability to manage the counters within your environment, as well as the event logs that you want to keep. We also have quite a few built-in definitions for RBAC roles. We come with 5 built-in definitions: reviewer, help desk, end user, desktop admin, and AVD. The one I'll point out here is end user. If you have personal desktops and you want to provide those users with the ability to turn their own VM on or off, as well as an admin, you can provide them the ability to restore that image to a snapshot from a previous day, as well as the ability to resize their own VM as well. You would simply define what sizes they have access to, and they can resize it at will. You also have the ability to add your own custom RBAC roles to limit access for management. We do have notifications with our handful of standard conditions. You can also add your own conditions with many tasks. Pretty much every task that Nerdio does, you can define within a notification and get notified for that. With that, that's pretty much a solid walkthrough of Nerdio Managed for Enterprise. I'd like to open it up for any questions, if anybody has any questions they'd like to present.
Thank you so much, Greg. I don't see any question in the chat box from from our attendees, please, if you have any question, either type it in chat or raise your hand and I will unmute you. So no question.
Well, Moen, I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to do a demonstration and a walkthrough of the product today. Thank you for you and the participants' time. I hope everybody gleaned some good information and found it very useful.
Thank you so much, Greg. This was indeed really helpful. We are going to post the recording. Please feel free to reach out to us if you have question, if you need any follow-on meetings, or if you want to see this environment, see this product in your environment. We do have Nerdio deployed in our lab environment and in our cloud as well. So this is something that is for our customers at any given period of time. If you feel that there's too much of hassle to go through your environment and you want to just get your hands on the product, see how it feels, get the performance and those things, we'll be more than happy to allow you to connect to our environment and work with the product. So again, anything, please don't reach out to us, and we will look forward to bringing more in-depth information about emerging technologies.